Vico and Malibuca were expected to take over EU, and after a rough start, are we finally seeing them click? Vico and Malibuca both came off of a really strong 2025, where Vico placed first and second in 2 of the majors on EU, and Malibuca's 2 best placements were second and fourth with his trio. Malibuca has been one of the best IGLs in the world for years now, and Vico has shown over and over that he is an incredible fragger. So when these two teamed up, they instantly became a top contender for FNCS on EU in many people's eyes. There was something else about this duo that made them so easy to cheer for too, their passion for being the best at competitive Fortnite. I would argue Vico is the player who wears his heart on his sleeve the most out of any pro. You can tell how much he wants to win and that he truly cares about being great, which I think is a very admirable and relatable trait he has.
That's what we can take away from that. Go ahead.
And in Malibuca's case, on top of playing every single EU event, Malibuca plays every tournament on NA Central and plays tournaments on Middle East and NA West from time to time, and full tries in all of these tournaments to try and get any earnings he can, despite already having hundreds of thousands in earnings. He qualified for solo series heats on 3 different regions and made it to finals in both EU and West. You can just tell he lives and breathes Fortnite. Despite this though, they got off to a poor start in Chapter 7 for what their standards are. The first big duo tournament of 2026 was the first Reload Esports World Cup qualifiers. They made it through the qualifiers and dominated in their heat as we expected, placing first to qualify for finals. In finals though, they placed 14th out of 20 teams, which was far below what many expected, and not even close to one of the LAN qualifier spots. This was also right after Malibuca was signed to Vico's current organization, BIG. This means they were locked in as a duo for Reload, as you need to represent the same organization at the Esports World Cup. You could tell how much this finals placement meant to them though, as Malibuca tweeted out saying their performance was disappointing and apologizing, saying that they will qualify for the next one. Their luck wasn't much better in the first Div Cup finals the day after, where they placed 19th in that, again below their standards. And 1 week later, they placed 20th in the second Div Cup of the season. People were really starting to wonder if this duo was going to split if they couldn't improve their placements. They clearly wanted to play with each other and were having a lot of fun playing together, and were now both signed to the same org, making it more likely for them to stay as a duo. But who knew what would happen if they continued to place poorly? They were both just too good individually to be placing like this. This next Div Cup felt important. It really seemed like they needed to do well or it would be one step closer to hitting a breaking point. The day of the Div Cup was here. In Game 1, Vico and Malibuca landed at their normal drop spot. This split around the mountain to the north of the map. They played Storm and looked for tags as they normally do around the mountain, and will push toward the mending machine here later in the storm to stockpile heals, where they juggle them to the top of the mountain. Malibuca and Vico do an unorthodox strategy here, where they single ramp up extremely high and sit on top of this brick ramp here. They do this so that they're able to use their wingsuits right before the 5 tick, so they're able to perfectly time their flight in right when the 50-50 zone pops to get center zone. They're also able to do this because they're so deep in zone and high up that they aren't in many players' render distance, and they can just wingsuit if they get shot out to cancel any fall damage. Vico and Malibuca make it to the center of the 50-50 zone, and the next zone pulls pretty close, where they're able to rotate on foot in a good spot. The next rotate, however, it's a pretty far pull for them, so they try and wingsuit in, but Malibuca gets shot out of the air down to 38 HP, forcing them to dive down and heal so Malibuca doesn't die. Since they had already wingsuited towards zone here, they try and run the remainder on foot, which ends up being a huge mistake, as Malibuca gets held and goes down here. Vico is now forced to solo clutch, and he does a pretty good job, where he's able to use all of his mats and heals, and sprints between rotates to conserve his materials. He pops a medkit in zone to tank as much zone as possible to prolong his life when he runs out of mats, but goes down in 18th place with 0 kills. Not a very good game. Was this going to be a repeat of their performances so far? Well, after games 2 and 3, it really looked like it would be, as they got a 21st place and an 18th place, only getting 2 kills across their first 3 games out of 6 total. It really looked like they were going to perform poorly again, as they only had 50 points going into the final 3 games. They would have to have an amazing second half of the tournament to salvage this. Well, in Game 4, it looked like they were on the right track to do this. They played the same early game, landing at their split, playing Storm and looking for tags, juggling heals, building their massive stair ramp, and wingsuiting to the middle of the 50-50 zone. Malibuca and Vico are very aware of their surroundings by constantly scouting in cones in these endgames, allowing Malibuca to get a pick on Perdage, as he notices he was getting tagged by Storm Surge here. They are again aware of the players on the backside of zone here who try and rotate on foot, as Malibuca gets a free pick on Art Skill for more kill points. Zone pulls far here, so they wingsuit to rotate here, but Malibuca gets lasered out of the air. This shows the importance of having good comms here, as Vico is ready for this, so he has time to stick to res in old builds. This also shows the value in carrying these medkits that they always have. They're able to full heal because they're carrying 1, sometimes 2 stacks of medkits. Another thing to mention is they changed their game plan a little from game 1. Instead of trying to run this half rotate with the fizz effect from the fizz grenade, they wingsuit into zone here, taking a high layer on top of many players since so many players had already rotated, meaning nobody was likely to land on top of them and build over them. Vico and Malibuca show their really strong awareness again, where they're able to look up at height through the mist grenade without risk of getting shot since the visibility is so low, where they recognize that height is being shot at and not established on a high layer. So, using the fizz effect, they quickly build up, where Malibuca tags height hard with his pump, causing them to need to drop. Vico and Malibuca are now on the high ground, and they're able to spray 2 wingsuiters to pick up 2 kills, where they're able to get all of their white health back from the siphon. Malibuca tarps ahead, and unlike the team on height before, they're on a high layer and are able to establish height by connecting with these metal ramps and cones here to ensure they have control of height. They're covering both the front and the backside of height here to make sure that nobody can wingsuit onto either side to contest them for height here, or fizz grenade and jump up, as in the 8th zone, there's a lot of players wingsuiting still, allowing them to combat this and hold height. Notice how separated Vico and Malibuca are at the moment, controlling all of that space. They both eventually make it to the front of their height tarp when zone closes a little, since it's rare for wingsuiters to try and fly onto the back of height given how the wingsuit forces you to go forward. Malibuca gets another free pick with his AR, and they get sprayed out here. Vico and Malibuca both instantly run to the back of their tarp to reconnect, but they realize they don't have the mats to fight for height here, so instead of wasting time and materials to keep height, they instantly make the call to drop and play a middle layer. Having tunnel vision here and getting focused on height could have costed them their entire game, and this quick decision saved them tons of resources. They play out all of their mats and heals and drop into old builds, where they make this nice double pickaxe play for a double refresh that replay mode ruined before getting third partied and taken out in 13th. This was by no means a perfect game for them, but they got 13th with 7 kills, more than doubling their points in the process to 104. In Game 5 though, we saw what we were promised when these two originally teamed up. This game starts a little differently. Darm and Damus try and make a lurk play in Vico's loot route, but he notices them at the last second and stalls the fight out to wait for Malibuca to arrive. They are able to disengage, but they take down 2 players by lurking and pinching them for some early game kill points and surge. They play their early and mid game a little differently here though. Someone had already set up on top of the mountain, so they go back into Storm here where Vico finds a surge tag. They pulled zone here, so they don't need to set up their normal strategy of ramping up really high to wingsuit into the 50-50 zone since they don't need to travel as far. With all of their early game tags and kills, they don't need to worry about storm surge all that much, so they can sit in zone, and they take the porta potties to Wonky Land. They want control the vending machines here, but run into Shark and Teeny who they end up box fighting. They play patiently here, knowing there's not much to gain from an aggressive storm fight, and Vico is able to take the wall in front of them while Teeny takes the stair. Vico takes the stair back and replaces it with a cone and instantly edits the wall for a peanut butter to hit a quick tag. Shark is staring at their wall looking for a pre-fire, but Malibuca times it perfectly, where he opens the wall, and Malibuca instantly maxes Shark, taking him out. Dexy and CZB push in now, and amidst the chaos, Vico is able to accomplish why they really came over here in the first place, grabbing a bunch of medkits from the mending machine. They play patiently here, just farming the mending machine over and over before getting their full kill since it's a 2-tick. They show their great awareness here again. Instead of pushing Teeny to try and get the Elim since he's a solo, they realize there's only 30 seconds left until the 5-tick, so they wingsuit to zone and pop the medkits they bought to make it in. The zone pulls really far here. Unlike earlier in the tournament where they make this rotate from the back of zone, they rotate a little bit on foot using wood for cover before wingsuiting to make sure they aren't targeted heavily, where they make it to zone pretty unscathed. They get a pretty good zone pull here where they're able to look for tags on players before wingsuiting in. Vico gets tagged really hard from wingsuiting, so they both instantly dive down to heal, working as one single unit. They look through the cone here and notice that height is pretty free at the moment, where they can get some free tags and are able to freely wingsuit the next rotate. They make a really good decision here though. Instead of wingsuiting to opposite height on the front of zone, they realize that would have required them to invest a ton of materials to establish height, and don't fall for the trap of building up to height this early here, knowing that they can make a play for it later. For the next zone, Vico and Malibuca make a really short wingsuit play where they launch from the back of zone and instantly slam into front side. A lot of players would rather rotate on foot in the late 8th zone like this, but they're able to conserve a lot of mats by doing this. Vico gets a refresh onto Flixie since they were looking at the backside of zone for any stragglers. They throw down a fizz Fizz Grenade to not only heal, but rather to give them the Fizz effect so they can spam Fizz Jump or Rotate, making them really difficult to hit. This is a strategy they use a lot. Because you can stack 3 Fizz Grenades, if they're not too low on heals, they'll often use one of the Fizz Grenades mainly for the utility purpose, instead of healing to make their rotates better. Vico and Malibuca notice Height is doing cheap wood tarps and likely doesn't have a ton of materials, and start shooting out everything Height is connected to from a high layer. Height is then forced to reconnect to Vico and Malibuca's builds, allowing them to edit their builds to easily chop out Height, use the Fizz Grenade to mask their location, and Fizz Jump up to Height with their hard mats to take the high ground. They get chopped and are able to reconnect, and make sure to play Height on the edge of zone for a better line of sight on the players below them. Vico is able to spray both Cringe and Volko here for 2 more kills, and gets a really nice drop down onto Werex, and Malibuca gets the final kill to finish the 10 kill win here, putting them on 209 points, launching them into 5th place. 2 great games in a row put them in a respectable place, but they weren't done yet. With first place over 100 points away, they knew that it was probably out of reach, but maybe not with an incredible game. They showed what they were capable of in Game 5, and a similar performance in Game 6 could be what they needed, especially with what happened at the start of the game. See, Chino and Pablo were in 2nd place going into the final game, and pushed Yapko and Panzer in 1st, taking out Panzer, and Yapko dragged them across the ocean to grief their game. Chino and Pablo managed to take out Yapko in 1st, but Malibuca and Vico noticed this though, as they were fighting in the ocean right by their drop spot, and were able to follow and finish off both Pablo and Chino. 1st and 2nd were now down, and the doors had been busted wide open, giving Vico and Malibuca the chance to maybe even steal 1st place here with an incredible game. They played their normal game plan, tanking Storm and hitting all of the barrels around their drop. They bought medkits from the nearby mending machine and ran back into zone as normal. Vico and Malibuca again wingsuited into zone ahead of the half in, half out zone, and glided in the air until the zone popped, where they flew to center zone and based up. They make a standard wingsuit rotate and spray Hellfire for a free kill. Again, they hit the wingsuit rotate and don't get damaged. They realized Height isn't established at all, so they hit a Fizz Grenade for the Fizz effect and take Height on the front side of zone, instead of directly contesting them here. Since Height was on the backside, they pretty much get it for free here, where they make sure during the 8th zone to control both the front and back of their Height tarp to ensure no one can wingsuit on them. They have Height with good mats and good ammo now. They're in a position to win, and they just need to frag out hard here, and this is what they do. An 11 kill win to finish the tournament, but was it enough? They finished the tournament in 2nd place, only 24 points or 6 kills behind Yapko and Panzer. It would have been insanely difficult, but they almost won the tournament after their abysmal start, mounting an incredible comeback for 2nd. Even though they didn't win though, this was a huge step in the right direction for them. They showed how good they really are, and they looked untouchable in the final 2 games. They showed that their passion for the game and commitment to making it work as a team made it possible for them, and allowed them to finally perform to their true skill level. I'm excited to see how this team does going forward, and I hope they continue to perform well, as I really appreciate their dedication to the game and desire to win. If you're interested in another competitive storyline on NA Central this season, check out this video on how Higgs has been challenging for Peter Bot's throne.